Well, you're joining us on a very, very noisy, very busy Gamescom 4. We're finding our little place to sort of have a quiet chat. I don't want to say quiet chat, a very loud chat about the wonderful Van Helsing. Can you give us a brief overview of what Van Helsing is, just for viewers who have maybe not heard of it before?
So The Incredible Adventures of Van Helsing is an action RPG. It's set in a fantasy world called Borgovia. It's like a gothic noir universe that is filled with scientific monsters, magic and weird technology.
And you've got the, yeah, like you said, the very spin on it, it's weird science almost, so you've injected your own particular slant on the Van Helsing legend.
Yes, because in this story, a scientist wants to bring Borgovia to a new scientific age. And he is creating these scientific monsters by lightning or with creatures sewn together and so on and so on and so on. And they have gone totally out of control and the scientist has gone mad. And these monsters have started killing people. And it's also bad for the vampires. So the vampires themselves called their arch enemy Van Helsing back. But he's already too old, so he sends his son.
And his son's not quite the able-bodied warrior that his father was.
Excuse me?
Saying Van Helsing, his son, is he as good a warrior as his father was?
Not as good as he was, but he will be after you complete the game. Yeah.
Well, can you talk us through some of the like the abilities and the skills? How does the whole system work?
Yeah, so you're gaining experience as you're killing monsters, and when you're leveling up you gain 3 ability points that you can spend on 4 abilities: body, dexterity, willpower and luck. Body will increase your melee damage and your hit points. Dexterity will increase range damage and attack and defense, and willpower will increase your spell power and mana, and luck will increase your chances of magic find, gold find, critical hits and dodging.
Actually, it's a really big, complex system.
Yeah, but that was just the abilities. So you also gain 2 skill points per level, and you can spend these 2 skill points on 3 different skill trees. 1 skill tree for melee weapons, 1 for ranged weapons, and 1 for the spells, for magic. And most of the spells also have 3 catalysts that are powering up the spell or the skill that you can activate from your rage, because you are also getting rage points as you're killing more and more monsters.
And you really need to be utilizing all these tricks because you're usually overwhelmed, and the beasts come from the very smallest little like Frankenstein monsters to these massive hulking beasts.
What was the question?
No, I was saying about just sort of talking about the enemy design for the game, about how it ranges from like the tiniest little guys like Frankenstein monsters to the biggest like monsters.
Yes, there are many kinds of enemies. For example, the small Igors, and they are minions actually, but they also have fire immunity. So Fireball, for example, it knocks them down, but it doesn't do any damage to them, so you have to choose your skills carefully against them. And other monsters, bigger maybe, some of them will slow you down, some other will be able to trample you, or they will have front resistance, so you have to get behind them to attack them effectively, or some of them will have different kind of elemental resistance or immunity or elemental damage.
And the game's not just single player only, there'll be cooperative as well?
Yes, we will have a co-op for 4 players.
Now, how does that actually change the game in any way? Do the enemies become harder to kill when you're playing with more players?
Yes, exactly.
Now, it's one game, but it's part of a trilogy. You guys are doing like a 3-game series, and you're saying there that you want to make sure the entire trilogy's done before you start releasing them.
Yeah, we want to make sure the gameplay for all 3 parts is done before we want to release the first part, because yeah, we want to release the 3 parts with half-year breaks, and we want to keep ourselves to it, so we don't want to let the community wait for too long. So that is why we want to be ready with the gameplay for all 3 parts before publishing the first.
Now, I know you're incredibly early on in development, but I want to know if once you finish the one game, you're thinking at all about transferring powers to the next game, or do you have to start from scratch?
No, you can transfer your character, your items, experience, and skills, and even gold.
Well, I'm sort of wrapping up then. When can players expect to see this game, and what formats can they expect to see the game on?
Well, Well, it's a hard question because, as I said, we want to be ready with the gameplay for all 3 parts, but players can expect the first part to be released early next year on PC and XBLA.
Listen, thank you very much indeed for taking the time to talk to us. Look forward to playing the game.
Many thanks for coming.